How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. I have debated how to start the show. You should know that there is a court hearing right now in Provo, Utah for Tyler Robinson. That's happening. The Democrats are careening towards a government shutdown. The president is sending the National Guard to Oregon. But I want to start with the shootings over the weekend. I think that is the most important place to start before those get buried in other headlines. And there's not a lot of chatter about them today. And I'm kind of surprised because they're both significant stories, but there's no political angle. So the national media has moved on. It is true that the shooter in Michigan at one point in the year 2020 wore a Trump 2020 shirt. But it's indisputed that both men, both of them veterans, struggled with serious mental issues. Most believe arising from their time abroad. In Michigan, 4 people were killed, at least 8 others wounded in a shooting at a Mormon church in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. The gunman rammed a vehicle through the front of the church during a church service and began shooting and then set fire to the building. The police expect to find more bodies in the rubble. The man is Thomas Jacob Sanford. He was an Iraq War veteran and outdoorsman, 40 years old, from Burton, Michigan. Ramming his pickup through, had a rifle, set the building on fire. He had been a Marine from 2004 to 2008 serving in Iraq. What's notable is that he was married and had a child. His son was born with a rare genetic disorder called congenital hyperinsulinism, which requires lots of time in the hospital and surgeries to remove portions of his pancreas. They had a lot of financial bills. He had to leave his job as a driver for Coca-Cola to be with his son. And his family noted that he was increasingly overwhelmed and stressed out, increasingly anxious. In North Carolina, a 40-year-old Marine veteran pulled up by boat to a bar and opened fire at the American Fish Company in Southport, North Dakota, a small town on the Cape Fear River. 8 people were injured. One of the victims is in critical condition. Nigel Edge is a Purple Heart recipient for his service in Iraq. He was arrested Sunday and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder, and 5 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. It was highly premeditated. What's notable is that the individual, 12 hours after, or 12 hours before Thomas Jacob Sanford attacked the chapel, this individual had increasingly become paranoid increasingly went down conspiracy theory rabbit holes, had increasingly alienated himself from his family. And his family and friends, to the extent he had any friends left, were deeply concerned about him. He also filed a series of lawsuits against various entities and was a serious conspiracy theorist even in his lawsuits. So I raise these two out of the gate because they're going to get buried because there's not a political connection. And to some degree, that's a damning indictment on how the news is covered these days, that if there is a political connection or one can be manufactured, and in fact, some on the left are trying to manufacture that, oh, these were Trump supporters. Not really. Yeah, the one guy had a Trump 2020 shirt on from 2020, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But they're both veterans who were struggling with mental health issues. And I think the bigger story here is probably our continued, as a nation, failure to take care of our veterans. It's a horrible, horrible situation with the VA. And we've now got two Marine veterans, within 12 hours of each other, opening fire on crowds in different parts of the country, both of whom seem to have engaged in similar patterns of conspiratorial thinking, complete breaks with reality at times, increasing violence. It's sad. What's worse, too, I got to say, just as a side note, it was a Mormon church in Minnesota, or Michigan, rather. And the number of people on social media whose first reaction was, well, I mean, they're not Christians, but you don't need to argue theology at time of crisis. You can pray. And some people just couldn't help but their first reaction be, well, we can't call them Christian. Listen. If your first thought is not pray for these people or how awful is this, your first thought is to argue theological differences between groups. Listen, I as someone who routinely gets criticized for talking theology on this radio show, I'm telling you, now is not the time for theology while the building is burning and they're still trying to find the bodies. You can deal with that later. What's more interesting to me are the number of people on the left as well who rush to try to make the Mormon shooting political because of the guy's T-shirt. I noted these this morning in my morning email, these two shootings, and actually had one of the reactions be, why didn't you mention the Trump shirt? And I just think that, for example, here's one of the comments I was thinking of. It's weird. Fox News has an article on their website this morning titled, "Who is Thomas Jacob Sanford?" I read the article, and strangely enough, there's no mention of the shooter's avid Trump support or images of him wearing his Trump T-shirt. How could that be? I even did a Control F to make sure I didn't miss anything. I wonder if this guy had been pictured wearing a Biden shirt, if it would have been included in the article. We know no motivation. We know no political motivation. We know the guy had mental health issues. And yet people who hate Donald Trump want to make it about Donald Trump. Y'all, that's the problem here, is we as a nation have become addicted to political headlines. Stories don't even get covered anymore by the national press and on social media if they don't have a political angle. And all of the stories that so many of us gravitate to are political stories these days, and there's got to be a political angle for the press to cover it. I've been watching the news this morning. I've got on, unfortunately, MSNBC and CNN and Fox News. Fox News is covering the Tyler Robinson situation. CNN and MSNBC and Fox have barely touched these shootings. Now, they've certainly, in like the bottom and the top of the hour of Bridge Newscast, there's some mention of it, but then they got to make it all about something about Donald Trump. If there's no Trump angle, no one wants to cover the story. And you know what's being missing because there's no Trump angle in the story is the failures that we as a nation on the left and the right have towards our veterans, such that we have had 2 veterans this weekend within 12 hours of each other committing mass murder, both of whom had early warning signs there was something not right and fell through the cracks in a system that doesn't give a damn about the veterans once they come home from war. It seems like the really big story should be 2 Marines within 12 hours of each other in unrelated, uncoordinated incidents in separate parts of the country decided to go on a homicidal spree and kill a bunch of people. And it has nothing to do with the Marines. It has everything to do with our failures to the veterans when they came home to deal with the mental health issues related to what they went through in war. And when you try to bring up reforming the VA, you have one side saying, well, we should just get rid of it, and the other side saying, no, we can't get rid of it. It's a sacred cow. And that's the side that doesn't even care for the veterans, which is wild. They want them stuck in that system, much like so many people want kids stuck in failing public schools. Why is it that the political left in this country wants institutions that are failing preserved and wants to force the rest of us to go into them? But also, on the right, there is the simplistic idea of just get rid of the system altogether. You know, I will say I have rethought my concerns about the VA. I by the way, I'm in the abolish the VA camp. However, I've had several friends of mine point out that one of the things with the VA is that they have a lot of specialists who are used to seeing individuals who deal with injury in war that are uncommon elsewhere. And because they are experts in dealing with injury uncommon outside the battlefield, they're better able to diagnose and treat it. And my response is that, well, it's clearly failing. As a society, it's clearly failing. So why don't we privatize the system? And also there could be doctors' offices in parts of this country that are set up to specialize in combat-related injuries, including PTSD. Clearly, we got to do something better than what we are. Both of these stories should be wake-up calls to all of us that we're failing our veterans and need to do something different and something better than what we're doing. And because there's no political angle, because nobody can blame Donald Trump or the left for what has happened over the weekend with these 2 stories, they are left on the editorial cutting room floor by the National Press Corps. There's not a lot of attention to them. Were it a school shooting, it would certainly get more attention. We'd have a multi-day gun control coverage from CNN and MSNBC while Fox News moved on. But in this case, you can't blame the left, you can't blame the right, you can't blame Trump. So let's just ignore the story. That's why I needed to start the program with these 2 stories, because we shouldn't ignore the story. They are 2 major stories from the weekend, and everybody wants to move on to scream about the Comey indictment or tariffs or the Tyler Robinson hearing or what have you. Y'all, we're failing our veterans as a nation. And the VA needs serious reform, if not complete privatization. Doug Collins, the VA secretary, is a friend and a great guy. And I trust his judgment on these issues and how best to fix the system. But the system that we have, everyone's got to acknowledge that it's broken. Our veterans should not be coming home from war with increasing problems and turning their guns on civilians at restaurants and churches. Yet 2 of them did. And the National Press Corps decided that they're not big enough stories to talk about because Donald Trump is not involved. That's how obsessed with politics, maybe not you and I are, but the press is, and that's a real indictment on where we are as a society.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year? I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast, In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome. It's Eric Erickson. I occasionally ask you to pray for my wife as she goes through her cancer scans. She's not up for her cancer scans for another month. Yesterday, she was walking down the stairs, headed out the door to church, stumbled, fell down the stairs, and broke a foot. So prayers appreciated. I've got great flexibility in what I can do with my job, being on radio and with my setup. I'm actually in my my office today, but I'm 15 minutes from the house and stayed till 11 to be able to take the dog out, to use the bathroom and get the dog settled, get my wife settled and all of that. So broken foot. It's not a bad break. They call it a dancer's fracture. Ballerinas get it. It's the outside right foot bone, the pinky bone, I guess you could say. It's a minor fracture. There's no cast. She's in a hard orthopedic shoe and has crutches. No painkillers for my wife. She's actually got a very high pain tolerance, but even she's like, I wish they had called me in something because it really hurts. So she can't drive for the next week. I've had to cancel pretty much everything. I've got a charity event on Thursday. I decided it was worth doing because my schedule makes it impossible almost to try to get it rescheduled. So going to do that. But otherwise, I am getting up in the morning to take the kid to school and get him home from school and take care of all the food and everything else that I can. She's still she'll do laundry and she'll do she's not going to sit down. My wife is physically incapable of just sitting down and relaxing. So God bless her. But, she also hit her head when she fell. She fell into a planter, but she's also got a very hard head, so her head is fine. It's just the foot. That's the problem. She'll be fine, but I appreciate the prayers. She's just been through the ringer lately, and this is her first time on crutches, so it's been interesting. But she didn't make it to church. We went to the ER instead. Now, let me tell you about Swiss America. They are warning everyone about the secret war on cash, and they have a report that you can get from them completely for free. All you have to do is call or text them at 800-289-2646. You just mentioned my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. This all-out war on cash is essentially the government trying to steer you towards using plastic. It applies to your digital currencies as well, as the government doesn't like you making anonymous purchases. They want to be able to spy on you. You can get the secret war on cash report completely free from Swiss America. Just mention Eric when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, and get the report completely for free from Swiss America. Message and data rates may apply. When we come back, the Democrats are careening towards a government shutdown because they want the government to fund health care for illegal aliens. That's not spin. That's actually what they want.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year?
I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I have a confession to make. I said I was going to talk about the government shutdown, and I will, but there's a bigger story that I have to get to first. But I promoted the government shutdown because for some reason I had it in my head that we were headed into the next hour, which is where I decided I wanted to talk about it. Y'all, it's a Monday. Just go with me. By the way, I have to share before I get into this federal takeover of the Oregon National Guard. My son has what is best described as a fro. It is massive. It defies gravity. It is so big, and I'm not making this up. Almost on a weekly basis, there will be an older black lady at the grocery store, if he's in there with me, who comes up to him and says she had hair just like that when she was his age, and she loves his hair. That's how big his hair is. It's incredible. And he grew it out that way because he was convinced he needed to do something to needle me to get under my skin. And I finally got used to it. At school, it completely defies the dress code, and they literally have had faculty meetings about my son's hair on whether or not they needed to tell him to get a haircut. It's got to be over your eyebrows, over your collar, and over your ears. And so he just gets those trimmed up and lets the hair continue to grow up. I've been lobbying for an altitude restriction at his school, and they've refused. The principal is just mesmerized. He looks like a Bob Ross chia pet. Well, this weekend, he decided to cut his hair off and do something different. What's notable is that the principal sent my wife and me a text this morning and wanted to know where Gunnar was. I dropped him off at school this morning, and the principal said he's been in all the classes looking for him and couldn't find him, and finally realized that he had seen him multiple times, just couldn't recognize him from the back. It's a dramatic change in hairstyle for my kid. I'm sure you wanted to listen. If y'all saw his prior hair to now, it's wild. It really is just a complete transformation. He looks like a completely different person. Now that I've humored you with the small stuff, let's get to the big stuff. The president and Secretary of Defense have decided to take over the Oregon National Guard, and the people of Oregon are beside themselves. Oregon and Portland, Oregon, the capital there, they have rushed. Is it Salem is the capital? Portland's just the big city. They have decided to rush into court to try to stop the president from taking over. Is it Portland or is it Eugene? I'm sorry, I'm hung up. What's the capital of Oregon? I used to know these things. What's the capital of Oregon? Salem. Okay, yeah, Salem is the capital. Yes, I got it right. Stop second guessing yourself, Erickson. Salem is the capital with that weird. It's like I'm sorry. I'm on the radio in Salem, and I want to come out there because I've never been to Oregon. I'm going to Vermont next week. I've never been to Vermont. I've never been to Oregon. I want to go. And the capital of Oregon is it's the dome. It doesn't look finished to me. It's an odd state capital, but nonetheless, those of you out there in Salem, you are aware, if you have ventured up to Portland, the problems in that city. Here is the remarkable thing about Portland, Oregon. When you see a lot of the videos from Portland from the left, you will notice the sun is up. When you see a lot of the videos from the right, you will notice the sun is down. There is a complete transformation overnight. How bad is Portland, Oregon? How bad is Portland, Oregon? Here's your data point. Portland, Oregon is so bad that commercial real estate occupancy rates are the lowest in the country. There's been a fire sale on Portland's largest office tower. The building is half empty. The downtown area is struggling with crime and other quality of life issues. The new mayor has gotten personally involved in this downtown office building. They call it the Big Pink. He expressed a willingness to provide city permits and other non-financial support. Get this, for the construction of a bridge from the building to a parking garage across the street so that the office workers would be able to get into the building without having to venture out onto the street. That's how bad the city of Oregon has gotten, that the mayor of the city is offering funding to one of the big office complexes so that the people who work in the office complex don't have to leave a parking garage, walk across the street and get into the building, because the homelessness, the drug use, the violence in Portland has gotten out of hand. Plus, you've got Antifa has taken up residence, and they are in complete denial there. Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, Democrat from Oregon, who represents the 3rd Congressional District and part of that area, put up an idyllic picture of a park. There are kids playing in the park, kids on the swings, parents are there. And she says, seen from war-ravaged Portland today, my message to Trump's troops, you aren't needed, you're not wanted, go home. The problem here, of course, is that that's just one scene of Portland, Oregon, and it's not the downtown area. The downtown area of Portland, Oregon is almost a ghost town at this point. There are homeless people. There are insane people. I'm seeing a video of someone walking down the street. There are tents everywhere. One person is either passed out or dead on the road. There is a flaming pile of literal human feces. There are heroin needles. This is all downtown Portland, Oregon. It's very interesting to me. It's very interesting in that when the left wishes to deny something, they have the media embrace it. And this, I was having an exchange with a reporter today that the reporter was asking me, what do you think about the Russia stuff versus the Comey stuff? It's like, listen, if Comey really did something, he should be indicted. If he didn't do something, it's a waste of time and it's going to fail. I've got trust in the justice system in this country. I do kind of think that Pam Bondi is going to screw this up. I'm not high on the competence there. But I said to him, I don't think the Russia stuff was real. I think that the Russia stuff is to the left what the stolen election stuff was to the right, and that the people on the left who say Russia, Russia, Russia have the media on their side. So if you believe the election was stolen in 2020, and for the record, as you know, I don't actually think there were problems, but wasn't stolen. And by the way, we're not taking phone calls for you to relitigate that issue, I should say. But if you believe it, the media lectures you about the stolen election. If you believe that Russia, however, stole the 2016 election, the media affirms your view because that's the conspiracy theory the media believes, because the media is on the left. So on the left, you have an interesting situation where the media will believe that Portland, Oregon is just fine. The media will believe there's nothing wrong with San Francisco. The media will believe this stuff despite all the evidence, despite all the people leaving, despite all the businesses closing up shop, despite all the major corporations refusing to do business there anymore, despite everybody, all the pharmacies, the drugstores, the Walgreens, the CVS's, all closing down. No, it's complete denial that there's a problem. Like what happened in Washington, D.C., a complete denial that there is a problem in Washington, D.C. And the whole reason is because the left says there's no problem and the media is of the left, so they adhere to the orthodoxy of the left. So when the right comes out and shows you the pictures of the people dead on the sidewalk from heroin overdoses, the needles and syringes, the flaming piles of poop, the homeless, insane people convulsing in the streets and yelling and chasing and harassing people in the boarded up shops, well, the left won't believe it. Now, here's the problem for the left is that more and more people actually see it on social media, can believe it with their own eyes, and therefore recognize the problem. And it is a real problem. It's a real problem. So the president and Pete Hegseth have decided to summon the National Guard of Oregon to go into the streets and help provide supplemental law enforcement for the local police. Now, this is very important because Oregon is in the Ninth Circuit. You know where else is in the Ninth Circuit? California. And we had Stephen Breyer's brother, Justice Breyer's brother, Judge Breyer, tell the President of the United States you're not allowed to take over the National Guard. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals put him in his place and said, actually, the President gets to do this. Oregon is also in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So if a new judge tries to say the President can't take over the National Guard, well, the Ninth Circuit has already said the President gets the ability to take over the National Guard. It's going to make it more difficult for the people of Oregon who are protesting the president's call to change this. It's just, to me, a fascinating play out of the precedents set by the left. So the left tries to get Judge Breyer to say the president can't summon the National Guard, which Judge Breyer does. And he does it in a very broad way to stop the president from ever taking over control of the National Guard without the governor's consent. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says it's pretty clear in the Constitution the president gets to do this if the president wants to do this. I'm sorry. You can't set the precedent this way, Judge Breyer. You're overruled. So the president gets to continue to control the National Guard. Now, they did it in such a broad way, and they had Judge Breyer do it in such a broad way that the blanket rejection by the Ninth Circuit is going to set a precedent that the state of Oregon is going to have a real hard time overcoming in the Ninth Circuit, even before it gets to the Supreme Court. They fought the president so much in so many ways where they don't have the power because the base has wanted to see them fight that they've actually forced the giving up of arguments that they could otherwise make. They've been boxed in to their arguments. They've been boxed in by courts. They've been boxed in by a progressive left that has just been adamant that they must fight. And in the process of fighting, they haven't fought smartly. And this is always a problem for rabid partisans. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. If you're fighting with no underlying strategies, just we got to fight the SOB. Well, you're probably going to get slaughtered in the fight because you haven't put thought to it. On the left, they have become so convinced that one must fight by any means possible. They roped themselves in. So now Oregon, wanting to fight the president, is hamstrung by the decisions of the California judges and the way California fought the same thing. And also, I need you to know, The president has the power to do this. Now, the National Guard cannot per se engage in law enforcement, but what the National Guard can do is in Portland, Oregon, the left has been attacking federal facilities there. In fact, just this past week, Antifa kids surrounded one of the ICE detention facilities in Portland and a federal building in Portland and threatened the people coming out of the building. Federal employees were stuck in the buildings, fearing for their lives because of the Antifa activists outside. And it took the local law enforcement off the streets to have to go deal with it. So now the president is sending the National Guard to protect these buildings so local law enforcement can engage in law enforcement. It frees up resources. And in the process, yet again, puts the left on the side of the thugs and the criminals. And the left seems real comfortable being on the side of the thugs and the criminals. The left really does wish to be on the side of the bad people. And for the life of me, I can't understand why the left feels compelled to stand up with the Antifa goons who they say aren't real and don't exist, with the illegal aliens who they say should be here, with the drug addicts, the violent homeless people who should be in facilities, with the criminals. That's where the left keeps standing with Donald Trump. And here's the thing. If the president is able to bring a semblance of order, just like he did in Washington, D.C., where even the mayor of Washington, D.C., who doesn't like Donald Trump, has acknowledged that the crime situation there has improved. It's improved to such an extent you don't hear about it in the National Press Corps. It's been such a success for Trump, the national media can't attack him for it. If he does it in Oregon, it's another wake-up call that aggressive enforcement of crime actually works. And there may just be enough people in Oregon to finally say, you know what, enough is enough. We got to throw out the bad prosecutors and the bad judges and maybe, just maybe, consider voting for Donald Trump to keep us safe.
Would you guys consider anything less than a championship to be a failure from this year?
I wouldn't say anything is a failure, especially because we all grow every day. Obviously, the goal is a championship. There's no doubt in that, and that's the goal. We want to win a championship.
I'm Christina Williams, host of the podcast, In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. The WNBA playoffs are here, and I've got the inside scoop on everything from key matchups and standout players to the behind-the-scenes moments you won't find anywhere else.
It's really, really hard to be the champions, but we have to remember how it feels and embrace the new challenge that we have.
For all the biggest stories in women's basketball, plus exclusive interviews with the game's brightest stars.
So to be here, I think it's one that we definitely don't take for granted. But we also know, that's just one stop along the way, and we're hoping to, make a run.
So listen to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams, an iHeart Women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I want to say something very serious here, not a flippancy. There are now people on the left who are encouraging the doxing of ICE agents, and not just the ICE agents, but the targeting of their children. This doesn't get attention by the National Press Corps because the National Press Corps is so biased towards the left. In Georgia, we had a situation where they were building a police training facility in the state. Antifa activists from around the country showed up in Georgia. They were not just harassing the construction workers of the facility. They were targeting their wives and children, showing up at the schools where their children went to school, showing up at their homes, and showing up in their churches. What's aggravating to me about this situation is it was so abusive and so reckless what they were doing, and yet the national media never cared about it. To my friends in the national press, these are well-documented instances here in Georgia, and you didn't know about it because you didn't care to inquire into what was happening because the protesters were on the left, so you imputed a righteousness to their cause that you would never impute to people on the right. And now you have people on Blue Sky, the favorite medium of the insane left, encouraging people to target ICE agents and their wives and husbands and their children in their homes. And it's only going to get worse And the irony here is you are going to provoke a backlash against both yourselves and the left by refusing to cover the insanity of the left and denouncing it. Now, I want to denounce to you the one-size-fits-all big-box store computers that many of you have gotten, and you think there's nothing better than this because you've never actually had a machine built for yourself and your needs. You can get that at Vision Computer, and it will be a game changer for you. Listen, I understand the temptation to go to the big box electronics store and just go buy an off-the-shelf PC. But that PC is made for the masses. It's not made for you and your needs. If you go to Vision Computers, call them at 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com, they're going to build you the computer you want that meets your needs and desires, and it's going to last you a lot longer and will be upgradable so you don't have to keep buying a new computer every few years. It'll save you money, and then you get their world-class tech support that you don't get with the big box store, where you get a special number, you call them 15 seconds or less, they answer the phone and can answer any question you have. Call them at 404-COMPUTE, go to visioncomputers.com, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Tell them Eric sent you, you could save even more money.